You're in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about whether or not Donald Trump is a budding Catholic, if he's leaning towards Catholicism, if J.D. Vance has rubbed off on him. Why do we say this? Well, because on September 8th, Donald Trump posted a picture of the Our Lady of Guadalupe, along with the words, "Happy birthday, Mary." That is the feast of the birth of Mother Mary. And so it's a pretty important day. And then on September 29th, Donald Trump, again, on his real Donald Trump Twitter or X account, posted a picture of Saint Michael the Archangel, who is a beloved saint and who is revered by many Christians all around the world. He is one who can defend us in battle. And so he said, "Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl around the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen." So it's a pretty amazing thing. Donald Trump, I believe he is not a Catholic, actually. I think he is sort of a light Christian. I don't think but I do think he's actually the right person for the president's job. I do think that. And I think that because he's the only one who kept us in peace. He's not a warmonger. I think you can distinguish Republicans and Democrats from whether or not their sides promote wars. And unfortunately, now we have people in both sides who promote wars, but also people in both sides who promote peace. So the peacemakers, like someone like Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, come from the Democrat side, have kind of aligned with Donald Trump. And I think that's a really good thing that they've aligned. And I want to say hi to I Believe It because I've seen it, and to Slam RN. And so I think that Donald Trump, because there were two attempts on his life, pretty brutal attempts on his life, especially the one that hit him in the head that actually would have killed him had he had his face turned just slightly. I think that those attempts have helped him to realize that he's getting some spiritual protection. And for him to call out to one of the most powerful protectors in the angels and the groups of angels, I think that's pretty important and very, very neat to see. And so where did this prayer come from? So let me just give you a little history on this particular prayer that Donald Trump posted. So in October 13th of 1884, now we're going to note the significance of that date in just a moment. Pope Leo XIII had a vision just after Mass in which he heard a raspy voice of Satan ask Jesus for, quote, 1 century and power of those who will serve me to destroy the Catholic Church. Now, 1984 occurred. We had George Orwell, but guess what? The Catholic Church isn't destroyed because Jesus said, "On this rock I will build my church and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it." He reminded Satan at this event that his church is imperishable. Apparently, again, Pope Leo, when he had this vision, apparently he was very taken aback, and his appearance was sort of whitened, like it was as if he had seen a ghost. But he had seen this kind of stuff, and so it was pretty important. The people around him had witnessed that. Then Jesus showed the Pope the immorality, genocide, and apostasy of the 20th century. We can see some of the really grotesque things going on in our culture right now, from all the way from porn to all sorts of terrible things. And the immodesty of women. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of women who are very immodest, which is a real shame. But the Pope later said that there was going to be a momentous concern about what was going to happen in the 20th century. And he wrote down that prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel for protection, because Saint Michael the Archangel has appeared in the Bible 4 times, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But that prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel was prayed in the Catholic Church all the way up until about 1964, following Vatican II. So we might have had some good changes, bad changes at Vatican II, but one of the bad things that happened right after it was this prayer was removed. We don't see that in the church. I've never heard it said in the church, and I go to church each week. So that's an issue. So where did this October 13th? Well, exactly 33 years after the Pope had that vision, we saw that Mother Mary appeared to these 3 children at Fatima. It started on the 13th of May, and it continued on the 13th each month, where she would give them insights into the truth. On July 13th, they actually saw a vision of hell, which struck them as awful, like the worst thing ever. And Mother Mary said there was no one to pray for these people. Unfortunately, they were in hell. They had made a choice. They rejected Jesus, and that's where they ended up. And then she again appeared the final time on October 13th, 1917, with the miracle of the sun that about 70,000 people witnessed. It also came with a number of miracles. Some people were cured from different diseases that they had. And she warned them. She said there was going to be impending doom and a sign of light in the sky that would appear before a great war if people didn't repent. She said that the World War I was going to end, but that there would be a second war if people didn't repent. And unfortunately, and properly consecrate Russia to her Blessed Immaculate Heart. And unfortunately, that didn't properly occur. We even had the Pope recently try to do the same exact thing, tried to consecrate the world to the Blessed Mary's mother of Jesus's heart, the Immaculate Heart, and unfortunately that didn't work. He tried that on March 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation of 2022, just following the Ukraine war. And so we had a warning also. This great light, well, guess what? It appeared on January 26th. You guys can look it up. 1938, the New York Times and many other newspapers reported an aurora borealis that appeared all over the northern hemisphere. It was the most brilliant display of an aurora borealis in 50 years. This is a quote from the New York Times. It held the Britons spellbound over a wide area of this country tonight. From 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., the people of London watched two magnificent arcs rising in the east and west, from which radiated pulsating beams like searchlights in dark red, greenish blue, and purple. So this light appeared just before World War II, which unfortunately led to the demise of millions of innocent people. So guess what also happened? Not too long after that, 1973, Mother Mary appeared to Sister Agnes Sasagawa in Akita, Japan, and she also warned of heresy in the church and the need for prayer and penance, and especially the rosary. Today is the first Saturday, and Mother Mary asked us as Catholics to go to confession on the first Saturday of each month and to pray the rosary and to spend some time reflecting on the Stations of the Cross and the stations of and the different mysteries of the cross, and to look into all that kind of stuff. And so that's a really interesting thing. So the rosary is very important, and we see that reflected then in 1973. She also made appearances right around that time that millions of Muslims saw in Zaytun, Egypt. So be sure to look that one up. She appeared as a figure on top of this church that she had built years before, decades before. She told a man to build the church there, and he did. And it was a church in her name, and that's where she had appeared over a long period of time. And even the president at that time of Egypt witnessed that. So where does Michael appear in the Bible? Well, here we go. And behold, a hand touched me and sent me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood trembling. Then he said to me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard. And I have come because of your words. This is Gabriel speaking. And he says, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me for 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. For I was left there with the kings of Persia and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision is for days yet to come. Now, of course, he had given Daniel the vision of 77s less 7. So Daniel knew that in 77s less 7, after the call to rebuild Jerusalem went out, that the anointed one was going to be cut off. And of course, that occurred now between 444 and 457. So in 444 and 457, we had calls to rebuild Jerusalem. Initially, there was a call to rebuild the church, and that went out with King Cyrus. He allowed them to rebuild the church, which they started to rebuild because in 586 BC, the first temple, the Holy Temple, was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, and that was during the Babylonian captivity, when the Babylonians had taken the Jewish people captive. And so they destroyed the temple, but we had it resurrected in a way. By around 535, they started to rebuild it. 516, the church was completed. And then there were two calls to rebuild Jerusalem. And if you take 483 years after those two calls, it brings us to a window of time right around the year 33 AD, which is when Jesus was crucified. In fact, we can pinpoint the date based on seismic activities by earthquakes that I've recorded before, and I've shown you some academic documents before, but we've recorded that did happen, and it is evidenced. It did happen in Jerusalem, so we had some earthquake right at 33, and so on April 3rd of 33 is the day that it's very likely that Jesus was crucified. But where else does Michael live? So what you know from this particular passage is we know that there are angels that protect cities. Okay, so angels are in protection of certain cities. And you see right here, Michael the Archangel was guarding a city. And so we have that sort of thing going on. There have been people who said that Saint Michael the Archangel is also guarding the United States. So they could be guarding cities, countries, you have principalities, you have all that kind of stuff. And so that is pretty important to think about. So here, where else does he appear? Well, here's another passage in Daniel. At that time shall rise Michael, the great prince, who has charge of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never has been since there was a nation till that time. But at that time your people shall be delivered. Now his people, he's speaking to Daniel. Daniel is a Hebrew. He was also in Babylonian captivity. He was taken in. He was someone who was able to interpret dreams, and he was able to interpret King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Now, just to flash back on that real quick in case you don't know that story. King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream of a statue, and he understood out of that statue there were 4 kingdoms represented depending on the content of the head or the middle part and the feet and that kind of thing. And so the 4 kingdoms were the Babylonian kingdom. Then what followed was the Greek kingdom. Oh, I'm sorry, the Medo-Persian kingdom. Then what followed was the Greek kingdom. And then he said there would be a 4th kingdom. And during the 4th kingdom, the anointed one, the almighty one, his kingdom would begin and it would never end. So in the 4th kingdom, of course, was during the Roman Empire. And of course, that's when Jesus was born. The Prince of Peace, interestingly, was born in the time of Pax Romana, peace in Rome. And so that is a very interesting thing. And his kingdom would never end. And so it hasn't. So here's what he said again. Here's Michael who's appearing. This is in Daniel 12, 1-4. He says, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never been since there was a nation till that time. But at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone whose name shall be found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Okay, so we see also Prince Michael there. And then here in Jude, we also have Jude the Apostle. Now, Jude is a very interesting apostle because you probably know that St. Jude is the saint of hopeless causes. And so there's a lot of children's hospitals named after St. Jude because sometimes people think that the children it's a hopeless cause. They pray and things don't happen. But St. Jude is a saint for that reason. For that mission. And one of the reasons he is now, Jude, very interestingly, was not prayed to terribly often through the centuries because people felt like their prayers might accidentally somehow be directed towards Judas Iscariot. And he had the misfortune of having the same name, Jude. But he is a good patron saint, and many have been healed because of prayers to him through his intercessions. He can bring your prayers to God. And we see that in Revelation 5, where the angels bring the prayers of people to Jesus. You present the prayers. So here's what it says. But when the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, was disputing about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce a blasphemous judgment, but said, the Lord rebuke you. Okay, and then we have in Revelation 12, 7-9. Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Okay, so you see that sort of a thing happening. And we do know that, unfortunately, we do have a demonic battle going on. There's a spiritual battle going on in the world at all times. Seems like it's been heightened lately, though. Seems like it's been heightened lately. So is J.D. Vance rubbing off on Trump? This is a question we must ask. So J.D. Vance studied Christianity and converted to Catholicism. I saw him pictured with famous Catholics like Scott Hahn. Scott Hahn wrote a book called Rome Sweet Home after he converted from Protestantism to Catholicism. Donald Trump has recently been aligning himself with Catholics with these tweets that he's putting out, these posts. And so I think that's pretty interesting. And we wonder, is it a political move? Kind of a good political move, because people like to see when Donald Trump is in agreement with their religion. Donald Trump's daughter, interestingly, Ivanka, she converted to Judaism when she got married to Jared. Was it Kushner? I think it is. And I'm bummed about that because I'd like to see her return to Jesus. So you can definitely say prayers for her. And I definitely think we should say prayers for Donald Trump, because two people have attempted to kill him. They're completely deranged. There's some serious people who have Trump derangement syndrome out there. And unfortunately, they're doing everything they can to try to prevent him from getting into office. And that should tell you something. That should tell you, one, the people, what are their motives? Well, Donald Trump is a peacemaker. He kept us at peace. He has already told, when Zelensky showed up just recently, Biden promised him $8 billion. Now, you'll notice that we have this terrible tragedy going on in North Carolina with this Hurricane Helene, and South Carolina and Florida. People are still cleaning out their homes that were completely flooded. And that's going on. I have a lot of friends who are cleaning out their homes still to this day. And unfortunately, the flood came up through the drains in some houses over there in Shore Acres and Snell Isle and St. Pete. And it came up through the drains and there was sewage everywhere. It was absolutely disgusting. And so it stinks there too, just to top it off. But anyway, why I'm bringing this up is because Kamala went there and offered them $750 to alleviate the situation. Now, they get offered $750 while people that they're illegally importing, they give them much more money, and they've exhausted the FEMA fund. And so, unfortunately, the people of those great states can't rely on our government to bail them out. Instead, they've got to rely on themselves. And we've seen DeSantis talking a lot about this. But anyway, why do they want Trump to stay out of office? Well, because a lot of people have built a career around politics and being a politician. And a lot of them have also jumped onto the boards of defense contractors, and they want to perpetuate wars around the world because they're making a lot of money off that. Okay. Every time we have wars, who's sending out the missiles? Well, a lot of our defense contractors. So the normal incentive is that they keep us in war, because that makes them rich. It's absolutely perverted and disgusting, and it's on both sides of the aisles. It's why I call myself an independent. I see warmongers in the Republican Party, people like Nikki Haley, who is also sitting on a defense contractor board, and also Liz Cheney, whose father was a huge warmonger, and unfortunately he was affiliated with Halliburton, again, another person who would benefit from war. And then you have people on the other side who are warmongers like Hillary Clinton, absolute warmongers. So I probably will have this video that's probably not going to go out very large. They'll probably stifle it here at YouTube, but what do you do? So anyway, I hope you like this kind of content. I've just finished another slide deck. I'm not sure when I'm going to put it out, but it should be soon. But I've got a new slide deck that is going to give you a lot of early church father quotations related to the testimony of the authorship. And this would also lead to the dating of the New Testament. And so I've got some excellent quotations that provide all kinds of support for the original authors of the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, the apostle; John, the apostle; Mark, the companion of Peter, and he also knew Paul, traveled with Paul; and of course, Luke, who was a traveling companion of Paul. So we've got lots of proof of that. Also proof for other writers of the Bible. And so we're going to get into that in my next video, which I'm not exactly sure when I will run it. I know I've got a Harry Stark production also to upload here. So one of those two is going to be tomorrow at 3:16. And I'm not sure when the other one will be, but that's going to be coming out very soon. I got a lot of good proof to support that, because there's still a lot of people who are claiming the Bible is anonymous authors and all kinds of silliness. But not only do I have proof of from the early church fathers, from numerous early church fathers, for the naming of those Gospels and everything, but I also have proof that helps to lead to the dating, because we've got some good reasons for the early dating of these books as well. So I hope you like this kind of content. Please like, subscribe, and do come again. And just remember, whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Thank you.